Well, hey y'all, welcome back to Southern G More Gals. If you're new here, I'm Elizabeth, and we're having 4 fall thrift flips on our Thrift Flip Thursday today. So let's jump right in and get started. And I found this little basket at a thrift store. Only paid $2 for it. And isn't this the sweetest little basket? I thought this was so cute. And it's really a little small size basket. I originally purchased 3 apples to go in it, but only 2 of them are going to fit in here. I thought the white kind of looked more like Easter, so we're going to paint that. I'm using the Waverly chalk paint, the ocean shade of blue. So I painted that. I gave it 2 good coats to get it covered good. And then I'm using some of the Waverly white wax. And I'm just going over this really quickly just to try to bring out some of that definition where that basket has a little bit of that weaving on it. And if you get it a little heavy in some spots, you can take some of the blue again and kind of go back and forth. So that's what I'm doing here. I'm just using some of the wax here to go over it. And then we're going to fill it with our apples. And this little basket has lots of detail in it. I think was one reason I liked it so much, from like the twisted or the braiding on the handle. And then here on the basket weaving on the side. So this is my final reveal here. And I purchased the little apples. I only paid 50 cents a piece from these at a thrift store. I originally purchased all 3, but they wouldn't fit in here good, so I'm just putting 2 in the basket. And I used some corn husks that were out of our garden to fill the basket. It's a perfect look for fall, and this only cost me $3.50 purchasing the apples in the basket. So what a sweet look. So let's go on to DIY number 2. And I purchased this basket from a thrift store. I paid $1.50 for it, and I don't really know what it is, if it's like the lid to a basket. There were 3 different sizes, and I'd purchased the smaller size. I really wished I'd purchased all 3 of them, but I didn't that day. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to paint this, the Waverly chalk paint, the celery color, and I'm going to paint the entire piece here from the inside and also around the edges. And I'm just putting a real light coat here. I'm not making this real solid or really fussing about the coverage, just kind of going over this really quickly. And I had the word harvest. This is a little metal sign. This was left from a 3-pack I purchased from the Dollar Tree last year. I think it was thankful and blessed were the other 2 words that came in that pack. I haven't seen these out yet in my store, but hopefully they'll be putting some out close to you where you're at. And I just spray painted that white. I'm going to go back and glue that on, but right now I'm just setting it in there just to kind of give me some spacing so I'll know where to paint my pumpkins on here. And I'm going to fast forward this so you can just really quickly kind of see how I painted these on here. And I'll show you step by step here where you can see to paint these on so you can follow along. And I'm using the Waverly chalk paint. I'm using the plaster shade is the white shade that I'm using. And then I'm using the pumpkin shade is the orange shade. So I'm just making my outline and then filling it in. And then I'm going to use, to make the ridges or kind of make the indentions in the pumpkins, I'm going to use the antique wax as the brown shade. And then I'm going to use the white wax is what I'm going to use on the orange pumpkins to make those ridges. I thought that I'd lost this piece of film, so I'm so glad I didn't. I was had my camera out in the sun, and it timed out from the heat, but it I guess it recorded, because here is all my painting. I was a little upset though, because I thought that I'd missed all of this, because it when I went to pick my phone back up, it had timed out there from the heat. But here you can see I'm just going around making some ridges there, some edges into my pumpkins, just to give those a little bit of contrast. So Tammy from the Rusted Willow and myself, Elizabeth from Southern G More Gals, we're collaborating today to bring you thrift flips. We're hoping to do this once a month on the 3rd Thursday. So definitely check out Tammy's channel. She has budget-friendly DIYs along with thrift flips. Her information's in my description box, along with the playlist of everybody else that's participating. I've really enjoyed starting to do some thrift flips, so hopefully that's going to be something we'll be able to bring to you on a regular basis. Check us out on the 3rd Thursday of the month. So here's my final reveal here on my little basket sign. I love the way the colors go together. I think that orange and white pumpkins, they really pop out up against that green. This is really easy to do. So it only cost me $1.50 purchasing the basket, and then the little sign was $1, but that was in a 3-pack. So let's move on to our next DIY. Now, I think this DIY is probably my favorite one in the video. I purchased this from a thrift store. It was $1.50, and I'm not real sure what it is. I don't know if it's a bedpost or the leg off of a piece of furniture. It has that little piece. It has some little prongs there where you could stand it on the bottom there. But I thought it was a really pretty piece. And I thought the shape that it was in and the detail that it kind of reminded me of a pumpkin. So I thought, well, what a good idea. We'll still use this for our DIY. I purchased this little metal pumpkin from the Dollar Tree. And then I had these little stakes that I had purchased, or these little sticks I had purchased in a pack. And I used these on a previous DIY. And I think they were like 75 cents or 50 cents. So all I'm going to do is, this was already white, and I really liked the shade that it was, but I just spray painted back over it with some Ivory Silk spray paint just to tone it down a little bit. And then I'm taking some of that Waverly chalk paint, the pumpkin shade, and I'm just filling in. This has some large indentions there, or some larger openings, and then for every other one, and then it has a smaller one. So for the larger one, I'm going to use the orange, and then the smaller opening there, I'm just using some brown paint. And once I got all of those little grooves painted, I went around the bottom there. You can see I put a little orange around the end there. And then I'm taking some of that antique Waverly wax, and I'm just kind of going over this all over just to kind of give it a little bit of a weathered look, or kind of a rustic look. So just really simple, really quick, just kind of going over it just to blend those colors in there a little bit better. Now the metal pumpkin, I just spray painted it at Ivory Silk spray paint. And I'm taking some of that antique Waverly wax and just going around those edges or those grooves there just to give this a little bit more definition. And I'm just using a big chunky brush from the Dollar Tree. So my original idea was to take a zip tie and tie the pumpkin onto the stick with that, but that didn't work. So I used my hot glue gun just to glue the pumpkin onto the stick there. And then I'm taking the glue gun and gluing the stick down into that bedpost. And it works out great because I already had a hole there in the top, so it fits right down in there. So I'm just holding this till it dries. And then I'm going to take some of the raffia and some other beads and things just to give it a little bit more decoration. And I'm just putting some glue here down around the base. And I cut several strips of that raffia. And I got it from the Dollar Tree too. So here you can see, and I'm just twisting that around almost like I'm tying it there in the front. So it'll just have a little bit of a crisscross there in the front. And I'm going to hold that down till it gets dry. And then I took a little bit of a larger clump here and I just twisted it into a knot, or tied it into a knot. And I'm going to glue that up here on the top because that pumpkin, it has a little hole there in the stem part. So I want to be sure I get that covered up. And it had an old little burlap bow on there. So I want to make sure all that comes off of there so you can't see where that was at on the pumpkin. So I'm just using strips of this raffia, just kind of gluing them in different places just to give it some fullness. And then I'm going to take some little beads too, some of the little fall beads, and glue those in place with my glue gun. So here's my final reveal. I think this turned out, I think this is my favorite one in the video. I really like the way this looks. It has a little bit of a whimsical type look there with the colors going in and out of those grooves. Also with that raffia kind of blowing around there, moving around. Really unique, but also has that nice sturdy base there. Great look for fall. So let's move on to our last DIY. Now, I have to say that this one is probably my pain in the butt here DIY. This one, if any of them gave me any trouble, it was this one. So I found this little wooden apple at the thrift store, and it was $1, and they had all their craft items half off, so I only paid 50 cents for it. And then I found these, and I'm not sure if this is a candle holder or if this was in some kind of a light or exactly what this is. But we're going to use this. This was $1.50 this piece, and we're going to use this to glue our apple there. And that's what I was trying to figure out which way I was going to do this. But it has that little piece on the bottom, so I'm going to flip it over this way. So I stained the apple in the candle holder, and I meant to use a medium shade of stain, but evidently I grabbed the wrong one because this is way too dark. It's almost black. I didn't want it this dark. So I went back over it with some red brick spray paint and spray painted the apple to give it some red color. I was going to paint over it a little bit, but as dark as it is, I figured I'm going to need that spray paint to lighten it up. So I started with the little blue check bow there. I thought the blue would really tie in with the basket, but once I started adding things, I didn't like the way the bow looked. So I took that back off. But I took some of the raffia here. You can kind of see I'm doing the same type thing. I'm just twisting it around with my glue gun so it'll look a little crisscross there in the front. And then I found a stamp here. You can see it at the thrift store, and it was only $1.25, and I thought it was really a cute stamp. So I'm just taking some of the Waverly, the white wax, and I'm just going to put a little bit of. And I also found a little pack of wooden apples at this thrift store, and they were $1. And so I took a medium-sized one and a small one there, and I just glued those with my glue gun onto the raffia just to give it a little bit of something extra hanging down there. So I just made 2 big knots there right in the center with the raffia, and hot glue that on with my glue gun. The apples hot glued onto the candlestick. I did use a little bit of the white wax on that candlestick just to lighten it up a little bit. And then I kind of blotted off some of that, the stamp there, so it wasn't real solid. So here's one big final reveal. This is everything together. I love putting apples out this time of the year at the end of summer, the first part of fall, and then also mixing in some of those pumpkins. I love the little pops of color there with the blue and the green up against all these neutral shades or neutral tones. Really had a great time today participating in this thrift flip collab. I want to say thanks to Tammy for collaborating with us from the Rusted Willow. Check out her channel is listed down in our description box. And don't forget to look at the playlist and check out the other YouTubers that are participating in the playlist today. If you're new to my channel, Southern Gmore Gals, I'd love to have you hit that red subscribe button and turn your notifications on so you don't miss any of our upcoming videos. Also follow us on Instagram. We try to put some sneak peeks out of our upcoming videos and show some things going on around our home. Give us a like on this video. That really helps us out on YouTube. And if you leave us a comment, that helps us out as well. Let me know which DIY or which flip that you like the best. It's great to be able to find things, really at a discounted price or really on a budget at a thrift store, and being able to turn those things around into more high-end, unique personal things to decorate your home or to give away as gifts. You really only spent, I got all these items I know for less than $10 and was able to bring something really unique for fall. I want to thank everybody for watching. Hope you have a great fall. Yeah, see, he's a bad dog. What's he doing? What's he doing? Yeah. What's he talking about? Uh-oh, it is, isn't it? Don't get her.